Okay, so Kern County Aging and Adult Services, uh, that's actually a really large organization because we're associated with in-home supportive services, the conservator's office, both LPS and probate. Meals on Wheels is run through us. A bunch of other programs are high cap run through us. What APS does is, let me just give you the aging and adult number first. Okay. So if you have any question, there's someone who can answer specific questions like that. It's 661-868-1000. And while I'm at it, I'm going to give you the 24-hour. Can you repeat that, please? 661-868-1000.
And that's Meals on Wheels?
No, that is everything. Oh. So you have a question. What do we do? Can we set up Meals on Wheels here? That's who you call. Now, if you have, there's suspected elder abuse or neglect, or dependent adult abuse and neglect, then you would contact APS, Adult Protective Services, and that number is 661-868-1006, and that is monitored 24/7. Okay, so who needs this training? Basically, you guys do. We get a lot of referrals from law enforcement. I've gotten some from you guys before. But financial services companies. Actually, let me go on to the next slide. Here's all the various ones that are per the code, per the Welfare and Institutions Code, are required to be mandated reporters. But there's also this catch-all. Any other protective, public, sectarian, mental health, private assistance, and or advocacy agency or person providing health services or social services to elders or dependent adults. So pretty much anyone who's doing something like what you're doing is a mandated reporter, whether they know it or not. Okay, so, but there's all these other ones that are specified in the code. What are you going to learn? Okay, what a mandated reporter does, bottom line, probable cause has nothing to do with us. We are suspected. If you suspect elder abuse or dependent abuse, and you have reason to suspect it, like someone tells you, or you hear someone talking about it, it's hearsay, complete hearsay, then you should do the report. Doesn't need to have that high level of certainty as far as for us. So anytime it's suspected, then give it to us. And if we confirm, what that means is we're not saying we're sure this happened, we're 51% sure. We think it's more likely that it happened than it didn't. So we're not a law enforcement agency. We aren't on that standard. We're on a different standard.
In regards to that, like you have the 24-hour monitored line, what is the response time on that?
Well, it depends. I mean, if it's an emergency situation, a crisis situation, someone will roll out that right then on an immediate. That doesn't happen very often for us, especially when it's up here, because honestly, it takes us an hour and a half to get up here. So we're going to call law enforcement if we think it's an actual emergency.
Well, I'm thinking in regards to you think that there's reported abuse or something. Do you investigate within a week, or is there a time frame?
Yes, there is a time frame which may change based upon federal law is likely to change that. But as of right now, it's 10 days.
Okay.
However, we do roll out immediately for crisis situations. We also have shorter term rollouts depending upon the situation. If you read, I read all the stuff that comes in, right, to us. the 600 reports we get per month. Okay, that's all. They all sound terrible. We have to triage them. Which one we go out on immediately? Which one is a 10-day? It's
that's why I was looking for your triage time on your report.
Ordinarily, unless otherwise specified, it's 10 days. So again, we aren't a first responder. Usually, in some cases we are. I mean, we're the first ones there, but it's usually not us. Okay, so if there's actual medical emergency, we're going to call an ambulance. I mean, what is a social worker going to do? Right? If there's someone's got a gun out, we're going to call law enforcement and then show up ourselves, probably, depending upon the situation. We don't want to interfere with the investigation. So that would be a reason why we wouldn't show up, but ordinarily we're going to show up. And if law enforcement calls us and says, hey, we need you out here, then we're going to come out. Even if it's 3 a.m. and the social worker doesn't want to get out of bed, they're supposed to come.
Someone on call
24/7. Yeah. Now, you aren't going to reach that person on that phone line.
Right.
We have a call service, but they'll put you through. Again, usually if it's up here or in Ridgecrest, I mean, that's a 2-hour drive. We're going to try and get other resources in the middle of the night. It just doesn't make sense for someone to wait 2 hours when you could have law enforcement. Right. So we're going to talk about the definitions of abuse and neglect, how to make a report. And by the way, I'm going to go very fast through that because this is going to show the state form, and you guys don't need to fill that out. You just need to fill out the online form. Okay. Unfortunately, it's not been updated on this. Okay. So the Welfare and Institutions Code, Penal Code, sometimes with some of the stuff we do. But most of what we have to deal with is in the Welfare and Institution Code 15630. And it pretty much outlines exactly what APS is supposed to do. And we follow that. Kern County is a strict follow as far as what APS is supposed to do. Okay, so if you've observed, have knowledge of, you're told by someone else, it's hearsay, complete hearsay, there's a rumor, you see it on Facebook, then go ahead and make a report. If you have a reason to suspect that something actually has happened, make a report. Okay, so anyone can make a report, and trust me, lots of people make reports, and they're not always completely truthful and forthcoming in all information. So we're used to that. So anyone can make a report to us, and they can make it as many times as they want. And as you might realize, we deal with mentally ill people quite a lot. So sometimes we get very interesting reports. So again, I want to emphasize suspected abuse. That's the key. It is not, we don't need evidence. We just need the suspicion. Okay? So we're a totally different standard than you guys. Okay, so who do you report to? Protective Services, Adult Protective Services. There's another organization that's very similar to ours. This is also in Aging and Adult Services. It's called the Long-Term Care Ombudsman's Office. So I don't think there are any facilities in Bear Valley. I'm pretty confident there aren't. Has someone set up what they call a board and care up here?
There was one previously, but no longer.
Okay, so some of those are very shady. Some of those are life sent, and even if they're just in someone's house. They can be a really good thing, or they can be a really bad thing. So anytime there's a facility, you don't report to us. So if they call themselves a board and care, they're licensed by the state, then you report it to the ombudsman's office. Okay, or law enforcement. Okay, so here's our mission. And I love the way this is put. Adult Protective Services means those activities performed on behalf of elders and dependent adults who have come into the attention of Adult Protective Services agency due to potential abuse or neglect. Bottom line, we only act on referrals. If there's no referral, I mean, we can't be an outreach organization. We have 20 social workers. I mean, we'd have 20 referrals on the way to work every day as they drive through downtown Bakersfield. Okay, so unfortunately, we're not a outreach organization. If there's no referral, we are not supposed to respond to it. Now, we obviously are mandated reporters too, so if we see something, we're going to report it and then respond. So it's not like we're blind and can't see that there's something suspected, but we're basically acting on referral. So if you guys don't report to us, we're not going to know about it. And this also, pretty much everything you report to us is confidential, but keep in mind you're mandated reporters. So it's not the same standard. If someone on the street makes a report to us, that's going to be completely confidential. It will really require a court order for us to reveal who did it. If you guys report to us, probably we have a habit of not telling the client, but we are not obliged under the law not to tell the client. So we're not going to say, oh yeah, Bear Valley Police told us this. We treat your information you give us as confidential. But the law doesn't say we have to, in your case, just in cases of non-mandated reporters. Okay. Oh, more about the long-term care ombudsman. I don't think you guys really need any information about that until you have a board and care. If you do, I highly advise you to learn more about them because they are very active. And one of their main responsibilities is shutting down those shady places. And who you report on means any person in the state over the age of 60 or a dependent adult. What the heck is a dependent adult? Okay, it's not anyone who's disabled. Some people who are disabled are not dependent. I mean, I have met people who literally moved around by touching a keypad on with their mouth, right, with a little stylus, and they were not at all they were not dependent adults. They were able to do everything themselves. It's someone who actually is unable to carry out normal activities, so they're disabled, but also they're unable to protect their own interest is the best way to think about it.
And we do have that here in the Valley.
Indeed.
We have many mentor programs where adults who cannot live on their own are living in the homes. And so
Yeah.
there's a lot of that in the
Right,
Valley.
and that would be, if they're over the age of 18, then they're in our jurisdiction. They're in APS jurisdiction. And again, mentors a little bit different. There are other agencies involved with mentors, so it might not be ours, but go ahead and call us and we'll figure out who's.
Hey, babies. Check the propane?
Yeah.
Oh, here. There.
What's this?
I'll cash the check. Consider it a monthly allowance.
What about the rest of the money?
I'm holding on to it for safekeeping.
It doesn't even belong to you.
Hey, she's my mother. I know what's best for her, all right?
But bet you guys have seen that before. Okay, that is very common. There's someone who thinks they're acting in the best interest of their mother or father. At least they justify it that way, but actually they're taking advantage of them and not fulfilling their fiduciary responsibility. And so that happens quite often, and that should be reported. Okay, financial abuse of an elder. Okay, frankly, what we see most of now are scams. And we have so many people losing so much money. It's just amazing how much is being lost. Just life savings. And so I can't wait until we can figure out a way to actually follow up on that. I do have if you guys run into a scam like that, there is, what is it? IG3? The FBI? IC3. Yeah. I saw a webinar with one of the people who works for that. There's 3 people who work in that whole thing. So it's all like automatic. They said if it's you catch it in the first few days and it's over $25,000, tell them immediately and they can stop it. So that's something I want to get out to anyone. And that's 25,000 is a common amount. So that's their cutoff where they're going to bother to go after the person. There's so much of that going on now. Okay. So in other words, if there's, you can think of all the different ways that someone could be financially abused. You could be, what happens quite often is people actually steal the house. They have them do a quick deed, and they okay, and you wait for a little bit, and then it's really hard to go back and fix it. It's really hard to prove that the person was demented at the time. So any type of financial abuse you can think of, that's something you would report to us. Go ahead.
To what degree do you have, like, if you have an adult child that does believe that they're doing what's in the best interest of the person, is it a reasonable person standard or
reasonable person? Reasonable person standard would be the correct standard.
So they want to buy a motorcycle. Son says, "No, Mom, you're not going to buy a motorcycle." Do they get to buy a motorcycle?
How old is this person?
Let's say they're 65.
They're 65, and the son says no? Well, that's too bad. He has the right to do that. It may not be a great idea, but the son doesn't have a right to tell him not what to do with his money.
Okay. So as long as they're in charge of their faculties, they know they're aware.
As long as they're not conserved. If they're conserved, or they don't have decision-making capacity, then but here's the problem. When you have someone who's clearly not all there, okay, they're oriented by 2 or 3, right? And they don't understand their situation. They're not technically gravely disabled. What do? I mean, you can't tell them what to do until we've determined that they are gravely disabled. You can't expect that they're going to use their best judgment, but you have to let them do what, they're Americans. They have a right. They're not required to have good judgment as Americans. Otherwise, I think most of us would not have done half of what we did. Okay, so let's see here. Next one. All right, so who can the abuser be? The purpose of this slide is anyone, right? We get plenty of referrals about the police. Okay. Ordinarily, those are not, they're from clients we're familiar with, who we have lots of history with, we know the situation. But again, it's not our job to investigate the police. It's not our job to investigate other agencies. So we would pass that on to another agency. So again, that's not something we would necessarily follow up on, depending upon the situation. But anyone can be an abuser, especially if they have a caretaker relationship with the client.
So how does
Self-neglect is the most common form of abuse that I know of. It is hoarders, for example, homeless people, people who don't go to the doctor when they know they should. They miss their dialysis appointments routinely. They don't take care of their wounds. That's a big one. That happens a lot. Well, in my experience, that goes hand in hand with self-neglect, yes. But it's not always the case. Sometimes it's just someone's proud. I'm not going to ask for help.
So a relative will turn in someone they feel that is self-abusing themselves?
Yes. That is unquestionably the most common that we have. Financial abuse and self-neglect are the most common that we respond to. And we're pretty successful with self-neglect. I mean, most people kind of get it when it's kind of, oh, you're not going to dialysis. Do you know what that means? You're going to lose your fingers, your toes, your legs, and then you're going to die. You're going to go blind first, but then you're going to die. Oh, maybe I ought to go to dialysis. Other types of abuse, neglect. Okay, so basically, for it to be neglect, you have to have a caregiver relationship with that person. Okay, so it has to be a lot of the neglect we see are family members who've taken on responsibility. Once they take on that responsibility, they need to realize they are obliged under law to continue that care or find an alternative. And a lot of them have trouble understanding that because, hey, I was doing this out of the goodness of my heart. Well, you're not doing it. She's, look at her, right? But, those we send to the police. Okay? If we find that, if we confirm neglect, that goes to law enforcement. And again, you can imagine any sort of neglect. Anything that you can imagine is happening. That's a bed sore. I've seen way worse than that.
Me too.
Yeah. I've actually, you can see through to the bone. And usually it's happening with people who don't feel it. Like they're paraplegics or something, or they've got taken a lot of drugs. They're just not caring about it. But
And that doesn't happen overnight.
no, and it doesn't go away overnight. It takes a long time to heal that. It's not something that because I guess maybe it's full of staph or whatever. By that point, it's like it takes.
The tissue's dead. It's
Yeah.
It's not gonna.
Yeah.
Can't regenerate that.
Yeah, it does take a very long time. It does happen. So I don't know what they do. I'm not a doctor, but it's not hopeless stage 4, but it is pretty bad. and this person's pretty soon going to lose their leg or arm or whatever. Yeah.
Or become septic and die.
Except much more likely. That is unquestionably the likely outcome. Again, seen much worse than that. I don't know why this is the particular one they chose to show, but yeah. Well, that's where it usually is, because someone sits in a wheelchair all day, or they sit in a recliner all day and they never move. And so that
They aren't turned in the convalescence. Nobody turns
you're supposed to
them.
turn them every two hours. If they can't turn themselves, a caregiver is supposed to turn every 2 hours. Okay. These are way different than the way law enforcement. Okay. This is worth talking about a little bit. Abandonment for us is like a caregiver who doesn't, if a caregiver takes the client to a hospital and just drops them off and says, I'm done, we're okay with that. Put it in a safe place. Now in the law, I'm pretty confident there's a number of laws they've broken doing that. But for us, they're good. They're in a hospital. They're safe. Okay. So lots of times we get abduction, and it's clearly they're not doing the right thing. They're not being ethical at a bare minimum. But for us, they drop the person off in a hospital. That's safe. Okay, so again, we're only worried about protecting the patient or the client. Abduction, with us, there's only one way. You take someone who doesn't have capacity to make their own decision outside of the state of California without appropriate leave. And usually this is extremely rare, because usually when someone's a conservator or something, they have a perfect right to take someone out of the state. It's those rare instances where the daughter comes, finds aunt or finds their mother living in squalor, just takes her. She doesn't know where she's going. And for us, that's a problem. You can't just take someone out of the state without who can't make decision. Okay?
It has to be out of state?
Yeah, out of state. So like I said, it's totally different than the penal code. And you're not going to run into that probably.
Where are you? What is wrong with you? The food not good enough for you? You're nothing but trouble. You hear me? You're useless.
So again, our standard for mental suffering is a bit different than yours. I mean, it doesn't have to be a terroristic threat. It doesn't have to be something where it's just that you're being mean and causing them mental suffering. And so, of course, lots of times you have alcoholics who get drunk once a day and they yell at their spouse. Well, yes, we do respond to that. What do you do? Well, the spouse says, oh, he's never yelled at me in his life, right? That's pretty common. But every once in a while, we show up and she needs help, and it's really good that we went out there. So any type of mental abuse, here's another example that would be both financial abuse and mental abuse. Would be, let's say we have a tenant who is really not wanted anymore by the landlord. So the landlord does things like turn off the electricity. That's financial abuse, and it's also psychological abuse. Okay? And it's against the law. You can't do that. Okay. Isolation. So, law enforcement standard, false imprisonment, and our standard are very different. If what we're talking about, let's say we have a gatekeeper who won't let someone talk to mom, right? That's when this is one of the major things we interact with law enforcement, is when someone will not let us interview mom. Just find out if she's okay. Find out if she's oriented. Then we have to go to law enforcement. And because chances are it's just someone thinking they're doing what's right for mom. But sometimes it's this false imprisonment. Okay, sometimes it's they're locking someone in a room and just I had another client who was actually the mother had built a cage because the daughter was very dangerous, and she would attack her and she would run away. But you can't do that. You can't put someone in a cage. That's again, and so we had to come up with another solution. Physical abuse. Well, that's pretty much any sort of physical abuse. And again, if you would consider it physical abuse under the penal code, it would be something you would report to us. If they're in, now law enforcement doesn't always do that. You're supposed to. Okay. So also sexual abuse, we certainly get our share of those. And our role is different than law enforcement in a sexual abuse case. We're trying to help the situation.
What a long day. I'm tired. Why don't you go play? Oh! That's it! That is the last time I trip over that thing! What is it you do all day? And pick that thing up.
Now, ordinarily, when we have a physical abuse case, if it's something where we need to document something, we're going to treat that as an immediate. In a case like that, probably it wouldn't be an immediate, because it's a slap. What are we going to document? But we would probably be out there sooner than later. Okay. If, on the other hand, there are bruises all over especially defense bruises all over someone, that's different. So this is the type of thing we'd head out on an immediate on, for sure. This guy shows up. What does that look like to you? Yep. Yeah, something like that. Okay, so we're gonna go out. We're gonna take pictures. We're gonna take a report, and almost certainly immediately report it to law enforcement.
Is that a situation that you can intervene in without them pressing charges?
Yes. If this person is scared and tells us they're scared, then we have some limited funds for that purpose to get a hotel room or something, get them into a domestic violence shelter, something like that. Yeah, we certainly do. Unfortunately, usually when you see something like that, oh, what? No, I cut myself shaving.
I fell down.
Yes, indeed. Okay. And again, you see that. I'm sure you're thinking the same thing I am. Okay. Now, the head thing, though, a lot of our clients do take falls. It really depends upon where it is, under what circumstances. But there, that's something I would think is probably very suspicious. So we would document that. We would see if we could resolve the situation, and then we would forward the information to law enforcement. Okay. Self-neglect. Okay. Like I said, that's okay. I think the worst case I personally saw was when I went to a hotel room, one of those long-term stay hotel rooms, and the woman had no fat whatsoever. She looked like she was in a concentration camp. And it, I couldn't leave her. We got the fire captain out there to look at her too. And finally, she was taken to Mary Kay Shell. Went into her room to kind of secure her belongings, which wasn't really possible since you couldn't lock the door. This was a really awful place. And there was a pile of toilet paper in the middle of the floor. It was like this tall, used toilet paper in the middle of the floor. Okay. She was definitely self-abusing herself, doing this to herself purposely. Well, I don't think it was just the meth. There was a lot more to it.
Now, would law enforcement come in on that in 5150, that person?
That in that case, that person was 5150. Well, actually, in that case, we told her she was going to be 5150, period, once law enforcement arrived, and she went willingly. But yes, what are you going to do? She's starving herself to death, and the evidence was right here in front of you. There was just nothing. There was no fat left.
Unfortunately, you can lead a horse to water.
Right, and she was like in her 50s, but she looked like she was in her 80s. So I have seen a lot worse than that. I have seen a lot worse than that. But you get the idea. Right here, that's our way to help the problem. How do you get out of there? There is the escape route if there's a fire. So we can kind of force them to do some cleanup through code enforcement because it's an unsafe situation. But the rest of it, if there's a path through the middle of it, if you've dealt with hoarders before, you know they're not going to clean it up unless they're forced to.
So that would be you and not the health department?
We might be involved. We might be the health department. Either one. In this case, you could call code because that's a code violation right there. You got no. How do you exit? It's blocking the window. Okay. All right. So where do you report? You guys don't need those numbers. I gave you this number here. And here's the long-term ombudsman's number right there. 661-323-7884. But you only report to them in the event that it's a licensed facility. Or it's claiming to be a licensed facility. Sometimes they lie. Okay, so this you need. This is where you make your report to us. Okay? This is the easiest way. The easiest way is you go to... The easiest way is you just Google Kern County Adult Protective Services. It brings you to that page. And then you're there. You go there where it says mandated reporter. Unfortunately, this slide presentation doesn't have what it looks like, but it's just a form, okay? And it's gonna say, is this something that requires immediate attention on it first? And then you're gonna have the form to fill out. This is what the old form used to look like when we did it by hand. This is the SOC 341. A lot of different agencies use this. It's not just APS. And so this is the standardized form in the state of California. If you have a question, you can just call us and we'll help you fill it out. But again, you're probably not going to fill that out by hand. It's just so much easier to go to the website and just do it. Okay. We can, like I said, you can pretty much count on everything you tell us being absolutely confidential. We are not going to break confidentiality except under certain circumstances. The court orders it. We're having a multidisciplinary team meeting, and we give that information for the benefit of the client. If it's not for the benefit of the client, we are not going to give that information. So if there's not some reason why it's important that we discuss that you were the reporter, we're not going to tell anyone. It's not like with law enforcement where you have those reports that they look at. No, we don't show our reports to anyone, except to law enforcement. We do send that off to you guys. But we don't actually send everything. We don't send our assessments, and there are other things that we don't send. But generally speaking, you can count on our confidentiality. No one's going to know you made that report. Unless in camera, the court decides that it's important to have that released during a court case, an active court case. So I don't recall a time that that's actually happened. They have subpoenaed our records, but they haven't been able to get us to reveal who the reporting party was we take that very seriously, without a court order. As I said, our standard is 10 days. We know at some point that's going to change to 7 days because this is not just a state or county program, it's a national program, and the federal government wants to change it to 7 days. It just takes a long time for the states to comply. And so far, California is not complying. So 10 days, unless there's some reason why we need to go out sooner. We do respond immediately. I assign maybe 2-3 immediates per day when I'm assigning. So it's uncommon for us not to have an immediate during the day. But in most cases, 10 days, and some of our social workers take that very seriously. They wait till the last day. They have a theory that the problem will resolve itself if you wait. And if it doesn't, then this is something that really needs to be taken care of. I, as a worker, had a different theory. You go out there, you fix the problem, you leave. I thought my way was much better. Okay. All right. What does APS not do? It's not interfere. We're not the lifestyle police. We're not the judgment police. Someone's doing something really, really, really stupid. We're going to tell them. And they say, well, I want to do it anyway. Okay. If they say to me, get the out of my house, I'm going to walk away. Because that's what we're supposed to do. As long as the person has decision-making capacity, we're going to just walk right away. Everything we do is voluntary. And we say that, but that's not actually true because like we see someone who lacks capacity, we're not going to leave. We're going to bring someone else in to fix the problem. It won't be technically us doing it, but it's going to be the same effect. They're going to be heading over to Mary Kay Shell or some other place. Okay, so we do not have the authority to remove people from a home or to place them into a long-term care facility or in a mental institution. That's not what we're set up to do.
But you do have the capacity to dial and get
We,
somebody else.
we have the capacity and the knowledge of who to call, and yeah. But if law enforcement disagrees, let's say they show up and they don't think the person's, you know, they're not seeing the same thing, well, we can't force law enforcement to do that. We can tell them, hey, no, look at this person. There's a pile of toilet paper in the middle of the room, half used. Yes, this person needs help. I wasn't worried about that one. She was going. Okay. Okay, how does capacity play into it? Now, one thing about conservators, they can actually act very quickly if there's evidence. I've seen them do it. When you think about it, in order to get a temporary conservatorship, it actually, you have to go before a court. But they can do that in a day in really exceptional circumstances. So it's not like it needs to be the 3 months to 6 months that it usually takes to get someone conserved. If there's really a very bad problem and the person really the situation is really horrible, then conservators can act on that. And one of the things we're going to do is make a referral. We can't make an LPS referral. LPS is for mentally ill people. The only way in Kern County that a LPS referral can be made is if the person's in a psychiatric institute. That is the only way. Other counties do it differently, but that's the way we do it. And so LPS is not going to respond unless they get a referral from a psychiatric facility. Usually Mary Kay Shell, Good Sam, over one on Wilson. That's where they get them. There's one in Ridgecrest too. Okay, failure to report. Yes, there are consequences. It is a misdemeanor, up to $1,000. Is there jail time? 6 months? Yeah, 6 months. I've not seen someone prosecuted for this, but don't be the first. Okay. All right, that's it. Any other questions?
Who's mandated? Who's a mandated reporter?
Okay.
Specifically, who fits in that?
Well, you are. Okay. Yes. Under your, now I don't think I went as clearly over that as I could. A mandated reporter, when you're at work wearing your uniform or whatever, at that point, you are obligated in a mandated reporter. When you go home and you're just a normal citizen sitting around your neighborhood, you are no longer a mandated reporter. However, you have an ethical duty to make the report, as does everyone else.
Teachers, healthcare workers, any of that is mandated.
Right. So all the IHSS providers, they should know they are mandated reporters. If they don't know that, then they weren't paying attention during their orientation.
They need help to get a job.
Yeah. Anyone in a hospital, anyone working in a hospital, in a financial institution, a teller at a bank. Yep.
Yeah. Because if you've got the client and this caregiver is bringing them in and saying, okay, you need to take out this money, and the bank teller sees that.
Yeah, we get a lot of referrals about that. Certain banks are much better than others, but I'm sure it happens everywhere. I hate to say it, but Wells Fargo is the most. No, they take reporting very seriously. I mean, but not all banks do. We good? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.